"You're being really negative right now," my brother said. "I'd just gotten out of a coma. I was always the one who showed up. I gave my dad a kidney when I was 26, and nobody visited me once during my 6-week recovery. I co-signed my brother's lease, and he trashed the place and stuck me with $12,000 in damages. I dropped out of my master's program to care for my mom after her stroke for 18 months, and when she recovered, she said, 'You've gained weight.' I paid for my sister's entire wedding, and she didn't even make me a bridesmaid. Every time I told myself that's what family does, and they'd be there when I needed them. Then I started getting headaches that wouldn't go away. I ignored them for a week until I woke up one morning and the room was spinning so hard I vomited off the side of my bed. I drove myself to the emergency room thinking it was a migraine. The doctor ordered a CT scan, and when he came back, his face was different. He said, 'We found a mass in your brain and we need to operate immediately. Is there someone you can call?' I sat on that hospital bed in a paper gown, shaking so hard my teeth were chattering, and I called my mom. I said, 'Mom, they found something in my brain and I need surgery and I'm really scared.' She said, 'Oh honey, that's terrible, but I'm on a cruise and I can't exactly get off the ship. I'll visit when I'm back.' I said, 'Mom, I might die.' And she said, 'Don't be dramatic, sweetheart. I'm sure it'll be fine. I have to go. They're serving dinner.' I called my dad sobbing and told him I needed him, and he said, 'I'm in Scottsdale with Brenda and the tickets were non-refundable, but call me when you're out of surgery.' Brenda is his 29-year-old girlfriend. I called my sister, barely able to get the words out, and she said, 'I'm at Molly's bachelorette in Vegas and all the flights are sold out, but I'm sure you'll be okay.' I called my brother and he didn't pick up. He texted me, 'What's up?' 3 hours later. A nurse named Patricia found me crying alone in my hospital bed, waiting to find out if I was going to live or die. She held my hand and said, 'Where's your family, honey?' And I couldn't answer. She stayed with me until they took me into surgery, and the last thing I remember is her squeezing my fingers and saying, 'I'll be here when you wake up.' I woke up 6 days later. Patricia was sitting in the chair next to my bed. She'd been checking on me every shift. She told me I'd been in a coma and no one had come. No one had even called. My mom posted a picture of her cruise sunset the same day I flatlined on the operating table. When I got out, my mom called and said, 'Family dinner Sunday and I expect you there.' I showed up because I had things to say. 15 minutes in, my sister announced she was pregnant and said, 'You're not working right now, so you have time to set up the nursery.' I said, 'I'm not working because I just got out of a coma.' My mom waved her hand and said, 'Sweetheart, we've all moved on, so let's focus on happy news.' I said, 'Moved on?' I was dying alone while mom watched a sunset and dad played golf with his girlfriend. My dad said, 'You can't keep throwing that in my face.' I said, 'I called you sobbing from a hospital bed and you said the tickets were non-refundable.' I turned to my mom and said, 'I wiped your ass for 18 months after your stroke and you couldn't get off a cruise ship to see if your daughter was going to survive brain surgery.' She gasped and said, 'Don't be vulgar.' I said, 'I changed your diapers and when you recovered you told me I gained weight.' I turned to my sister and said, 'I paid $20,000 for your wedding and you couldn't get a flight from Vegas? You were doing body shots at a pool party while I was flatlining.' I turned to my brother and said, 'You didn't even pick up. You texted me what's up while I was in a coma.' He squirmed and said, 'You're being really negative right now and it's kind of ruining the vibe.' I stood up so fast my chair hit the wall and said, 'Ruining the vibe?' I had a nurse hold my hand because my own family couldn't be bothered. Patricia took better care of me than any of you ever have. My mom sobbed and said, 'We're your family.' I said, 'No, family shows up.' A stranger held my hand while I was dying because none of you could miss brunch. My dad stood and said, 'I think you should leave.' I said, 'Gladly. I'm done. No more money, no more kidneys, no more years of my life.' My mom wailed, 'You're destroying this family.' I walked to the door and said, 'You destroyed it when you posted a sunset while your daughter was coding on an operating table. That was a year ago. Last month my dad needed someone to drive him to dialysis 3 times a week and asked if I could help. I said, 'Have you tried asking Brenda?'